We're proud to welcome you to the Exceptional Advisor podcast series, brought to you by the Investments and Wealth Institute. This series aims to help you to better serve your clients, differentiate yourself from the competition, and enhance your ability to communicate those differences. Hi, I'm your host, Bob Powell. My guests today are Heath from Envestnet and Kellan Brown from Finance of America Reverse. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Pleasure to have you both here. Before we get going, for the benefit of our listeners who may not be familiar with you and your work, do you mind giving us a brief overview? Jean, you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely. So thank you so much for having me. And Kellan, it's so great to be speaking with you again on our favorite subject of mentorship. So I am Jean Heath. I work at Envestnet. I am responsible for the asset manager network for Envestnet. I have been in the wealth management industry for 25 years now, spending 20 years at Brinker Capital prior to joining Envestnet. And one of the other roles that I have at Envestnet is I chair our Envestnet Institute on Campus, which is a program that we created about 7 years ago. And we've created an online educational curriculum that we provide to colleges and universities across the country. It's at no cost. And what we share for the students, the curriculum is meant to bridge the knowledge gap from the classroom to the workplace so that students are able to join the investment industry with some terminology and different understandings of the role of an RIA that you may not have learned while you were in class. So we've had over 6,000 students go through the program, big focus on women and people of color. So we believe this is a way we're going to drive diverse talent into our industry. So I chair that board, and I always say that is my most favorite part of my job that I actually do for free, because it's not really my job. It's more my passion project. So that's my background.
Great. Kellan?
Yeah, I'm Kellan Brown. Similar to Jean, my day job is Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Finance of America Reverse. And I sit on the committee for our mentorship program. So a little bit of background on how Jean and I met. She was speaking at an IWI event, and I heard what she had done with her college students and the impact she was making in the industry. Well, what was so fascinating is we're doing the same thing with our employees. So when Jean and I connected, we talked about how we were able to leverage these two specific initiatives for mentorship and what that impact can make. So similar to Jean, that is a true passion of mine. I've been in business development for over 15 years now. And my true vision is to see any employee, student, or colleague that comes into my circle of influence come out their better self to then be able to pay it forward. And that's exactly what we're doing with the mentorship programs.
Yeah. So let's start with some basics around mentorship. Maybe define it, what it is, and then maybe talk a little bit about why the both of you teamed up on this sort of topic.
Sure. So I can start. I mean, the way I have viewed, I've been mentored and also been mentoring and been a mentee throughout my whole career. So I think early on, I would say Kellan and I are from two different generations. I've been in this industry a lot longer, and what I have been part of a lot of informal mentorships that just sort of naturally form within an organization, whether it's your leader sees that you're doing a good job and feels like you're somebody they would like to help bring along because they know in turn you're also helping them be successful. And it's a good two-way partnership, and it's a great way for younger professionals, and even no matter where you're at in your career, to have someone help guide you to get to the next level. And so I think that has been something that I've done throughout my career. And then as I started running the Envestnet Institute on campus, we put together more of a formal type of mentorship program that was organized in a way through pairing rather than informal. So I'm a big advocate for people to be a mentor and make sure that they are, like Kellan said, pay it forward, and realizing that, the next generation of our future leaders don't just happen without the guidance of existing ones.
So well said.
Kellan, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's so funny. The word mentorship makes people either excited or a little bit uncomfortable. And so it ties into a lot of coaching. It ties in a lot of management. It ties into a lot of professional development. And when Jean speaks about the informal aspect of mentorship, I don't think there's anyone that's listening to this podcast that can't think of someone that has made an impact in their growth and development in their life, whether that be personal or professional. So what we started to do was, let's figure out a structure that we can take that framework and make it truly intentional and impactful. And I always like to share my story of why this is so important, because I think that's really where this all started from for me. So I came into the workforce incredibly excited. I was working directly for a CEO. I thought it was a female. I was ready to just take over the world. And I think a lot of us enter the workforce that way. Well, over a very quick period of time, I realized it was more of a competitive nature. It was a lot of toxicity, a little bit of verbal abuse that was coming through. And I realized this is not healthy. It took my sister overhearing a conversation that is not a good manager. That is, this is not how your life is supposed to build in the professional space. So it was in that moment that I realized that we have an opportunity to make change, and we have an opportunity to set the right step forward with management and growth. And so that's when I started to do the research and the work of what is a mentor. And that truly is. There's a number of ways to define what mentorship role you're planning on taking. And that's where Jean and I came into play, because we've both showed up similar when it's informal and very different when it's formal. So we're excited to talk about that.
Yeah. So one question before we talk about how you and Jean teamed up is this notion of mentorship perhaps has been ingrained in the male world, but perhaps less so among the female workforce. Is that fair to say?
I think in a lot of it is because there weren't as many women through the years. So as we have more women in roles and in leadership roles, we're creating more opportunities to have women mentored. And I'd say that is probably more of my bigger passion, is around ensuring that we are encouraging women and we're mentoring and supporting them along their career journey, especially at a point in time when they choose to have a family, and then the demands of your job and the demands of your home are complicated, and we need to provide a support structure, because that's where we lose a lot of women, especially in our industry. And that is why we don't have as many women in the C-suite, because you need to actually go along the journey to get there. And if you have to step out and you're stepping out for 10 years or so, it's a lot of catch up to do. So I am really passionate about that. And I think as we start to have more women continuing to stay in the workforce, we'll be able to have more women mentors for women. And as we sit here and talk about that, my main early on mentor that I feel helped shape my career was a man. So it doesn't have to just be woman to woman mentoring. It could be men and women, a woman mentoring a man. So I think Kellan has a similar experience too, has had some male mentors along the way too.
I have, yes. My job, the second job I got after that first experience, I ended up staying in for 9 years. And that gentleman that owned the company, to this day, a dear friend, dear mentor, I consider him family now. But to Jean's point, it is true. It has been more of an informal, I see someone, as if I'm a male, I see someone that I resonate with that looks and is executing the way I did at their age. So I'm going to take them under my wing and I'm going to help see them succeed. And that is beautiful. There is nothing I want to change about that. It's just we don't have enough women sitting in that C-suite role to say, I see you and I see myself in you and I want to take you there. So to Jean's point again, we need to make sure we're paying attention to the women that want to raise up and give them the tools and path to be able to do that successfully. And then I think the other point to that is, being able to mentor a male as a female, what a gift, because they get exposure into what it looks like as a female, and then being able to work with women sitting in maybe a little bit higher seat and building that respect is huge.
And I suppose the same is true for people of color in terms of finding mentors and being mentored as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up, Robert, because that is something that now, as long as my journey and my passion for mentoring, I had the opportunity to take a course through the Yale Executive Program of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. and there was a conversation around mentorships and the success of mentorships, and how there many times informal mentorships are very successful because, as Kellan described, you have an affinity to that person. They look like you. They remind you of your young self, that you're like, they're a go-getter, and I want to make sure that they succeed. And so then that makes very big limitations. Like, we once spoke of women, but also people of color. And so the next evolution for myself, as I start to really, have more of a passion towards mentoring and trying to make more of an impact, is to encourage people in roles, someone like myself who's been working a long time in a senior position. I need to challenge myself to mentor someone that doesn't look like me, that is nothing like me, to really help drive a more diverse workplace, because I will learn just as much too. Like, I don't know what it's like I know what it's like to sit in a woman's shoes, obviously being a woman, and how there were difficulties along the way, but I don't know what it's like to be a Black man, a Black woman, a Latino man, Latino woman, trying to make their way in what has traditionally been a very white, male-dominated industry. And the only way we can change that is to change the way in which we're actually creating mentorships, even whether they're formal or informal.
So I want to get to how we implement a mentorship program, but first I want you to talk about, and maybe it's obvious, why the both of you teamed up together.
Well, I think to Jean's point of seeing yourself in someone or wanting to be like them, when I heard Jean speak and just did research on her, I got very excited. Being able to build a program that is that powerful and impactful in such a large organization is really challenging. So when we talk about the process, that'll help explain why it's so important to us, because it's one thing to have just one relationship with a mentor and a mentee. It's another to establish a commitment to an organization where they need to see metrics that drive the purpose of this initiative so that it impacts the bottom line and that there's meaning behind it. So really it was me just saying, I would love to mirror this beautiful woman as she's grown in her career. And so I just reached out and said, will you sit with me on a panel about something that's really important to both of us? So that's how I saw Jean.
I'm beyond flattered, so thank you. And it has been a wonderful relationship that we've formed. I mean, and Kellan's out in California, so I feel like we're lucky that conferences bring us together while I'm situated on the East Coast in New Jersey. So I'm very energized by her, with her passion and the way in which she's taken an evolved approach to mentorship, which we'll get into. And it's really with utilizing technology and data, which I was fascinated by. So I think the two of us are bringing very unique experiences in a way in which we can help grow the message around why mentorship is so important in our industry and why we absolutely need it to create a more diverse industry.
Great. All right. So let's talk about implementing a mentorship program. Jean, you talked a little bit about the campus program. And Kellan, you talked a little bit about the in-house program. Maybe you could just drill down on both those approaches to implementation.
Sure. Maybe I'll start, because I always feel like mine's the old school way. It's like we had a spreadsheet, we had a bunch of names, we do a questionnaire and say, what are your interests? What do you, when you're in college, what are your interests? What career aspirations do you have? Now we're going to pair you with someone who has volunteered, who is is a portfolio manager, is in finance, is in marketing, and make sure that along that journey you have someone that you can actually look to aspire and learn from. And we did build some structure with a template around how to structure the program. Well, what are you talking about? We broke it up for the college students in semesters. Like, as you start like that second summer semester, let's gear up, let's get connected. And then in the fall, it was, resume and LinkedIn. And then, as you were approaching the end of the semester, going into the winter break, you really need to start thinking about where am I should be interviewing for internships for the summer. And so we did it that way, and everything was done like through a survey type of thing, but a lot of what I would call anecdotal data versus real hard data. And it worked. It was at a time we didn't have access to the technology. And I think, I'll let Kellan now go and talk about the way in which she was able to form a very successful program that has metrics.
Yeah, so what Jean just explained, it's still an unbelievably viable option for mentorship programs. So I think that's what's so great about this is not one way is the right way. I think it's really determined based on, one, the size of your organization, the investment financially that you can make into it, and then what you're trying to get out of it. So for what Jean did, she did it with students. We're just starting to launch this with the FinServe Foundation. I sit on their board of directors, and I'm really excited to pick Jean's mind about how she did this, because we're going to try and mirror what they've done. But for Finance of America Reverse, we are a reverse lending company that exists a part of an enterprise. Blackstone owns 70% of us. We're a publicly traded company. And I knew how important it was to show the value of why a mentorship program is important. So my first thought was, how can we attach metrics to this so that it gives proof of concept and shows the bottom line impact? So here's what we did. We went out and found 5 committee members that were as passionate about mentorship as I am. They all had a story. They all came from a different part of the organization. And why I say that's important is because it has to be about communication. Who in the structure of the company is able to do internal communication, marketing? I need branding. I need to make this thing look pretty and good. So when we actually sell the concept to the organization, they're going to completely buy into it. We need the visionaries, and then we need someone that's also sitting on a C-suite title. And the reason why is you need one champion to back it in the C-suite world. So you take that committee, you divide up the actual obligations to each person. And then for us, we knew what our investment was. So we actually went out to a mentorship technology suite of companies and said, we'd love to talk to you about what you can offer us. We ended up landing with MentorClick. And the reason why this was so important to me was because they provide the metrics that support the return on investment. So let me give you an example. Every single month, we received a report on how many mentors had achieved the goals that they had entered into the system. So we were seeing, are we going to see them promote up, which saves us dollars on new hires, and that's internal professional development. And then it also came back on retention, right? What is the percent of retention on mentors and mentees versus non-participants in the actual program? We saw a vast difference. So all of these statistics that we continued to see come out were cost savings to us, because we were not having to do the research of finding new employees. We were coaching up so that we were seeing people elevate their work capabilities. We had communication from managers to mentees and mentors. So it was just a huge, huge gift to be able to say, last year in 2022, Finance of America Reverse saved $2.3 million because of the mentorship program that we had. And all of those items that come out of that are a requirement that mentee must enter into the system themselves. So there are a framework of what's expected of you. And then to Jean's point, assets are built out so the mentors have some type of structure and training program that they have to go through so that we can hold them accountable to what we want resulted in the culture and things like that. But that's really it. It's build a committee, make sure you find the right tech partner to support it, make sure you have that champion, build out the assets that can support the actual activity and communication of it, and then present that to the stakeholders of the company so that you can go enterprise-wide. And we were approved to go enterprise-wide in January.
As you think about the steps involved in this process, obviously you have to train mentors, you have to match mentors and mentees. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So this is the really fun part. Jean actually outlined exactly what MentorClick does. So it is a list of questions that you get to choose, where think of it as in like speed dating, maybe not speed dating, but like what is it like? Like dating apps. Sorry. I never went on those, so I don't know them anymore. So they like pair you, I guess, based on what you enter. I don't know, maybe not. But yeah, it is. It's similarities. It's what you're looking to work on. Do you want to work with a female or a male? Are you looking to work with someone at a certain management level? Are you looking to change divisions? the technology and platforms at that point are able to match you based on what the mentor participating and the mentee is participating.
Yeah, I would say in terms of pairing, one thing I had found, especially when we were working with college students, is they were much more receptive in having a younger mentor, somebody who was out of school within the last 5 to 7 years. And I think what had happened when we first started the program, we had, for the Envestnet Institute on campus, we had this Women in Wealth organization as part of it. And we had a lot of very senior women in the industry. And some of them were C-suite CEO, and the students were intimidated. They were too far from where they needed to be. These were kids in college that their focus was, I need my first job, and I need a resume. What do I wear when I go on the interview? What kind of questions should I be prepared for? And I found that when they were talking to someone who wasn't that far away from that experience, they really bonded, and it was a much more successful journey. And especially in mentor-mentee relationships, it really is the role of the mentee to drive the relationship. It's, and especially, if someone is volunteered or has been chosen to be your mentor, they're still generally a much busier person than you are at that point in your career, and you are now asking of their time, that when you come and meet with them, you really need an agenda and you need a focus, and not just, hey, how's it going? It's not a chat. It's about, what do we want to accomplish together? And I found that for the students, it was much easier for them because their goals were much more relatable to someone who just recently went through that experience.
Right. And I expect that in the case of college students, they may not know what knowledge they need to acquire or skills they need to acquire or the abilities they may need to have in order to enter and elevate in the workforce. Is that fair to say that the mentor?
Absolutely. I think they weren't really at a point in their career to understand what a privilege it was to have a CEO being willing to help you. And also, I think technology has changed so much. And, when there was phone calls were like, no, I don't want to do a phone call. It was like a lot of text. It was an email, and it was really getting students comfortable. But you need those skills in the workplace. So I think it has really, that's what we did find, that they weren't at that point. And generally the way we wanted to build this, there's always those rock star students that were going to get their job without a mentor. Like that's just who they were personally. Perhaps they had family members or a support structure around them that was going to drive them into wealth management. Our focus was on supporting the people that were first generation college, that didn't necessarily have a parent or, a friend or an uncle or aunt in the industry. Like, how do we make sure we're giving an equal opportunity to people, like to tap the right talent? And one of the reasons why we really built the Envestnet Institute on campus was to really help college students understand what a wonderful industry this is. And I love our industry. I think it's, we do a lot of great things for people. We get to spend a lot of time with very smart people, and it's an industry that pays well. And that's something students, when you say that, their eyes light up and they start to think maybe it is something I'd like to do. But in the day of some more fast-paced moving jobs, they need to understand there's a lot of tech enhancements, and it's fintech now, and why we need younger voices at the table is they've grown up in this environment, and they're actually going to wind up teaching many of us in the industry to help evolve.
Yeah. So when I think about some of the challenges and hurdles, maybe you can address this. Are there enough people to be mentors? And is it the case that not everyone can be a mentor, or perhaps they can be trained to be mentors?
Yeah, I think that's actually the biggest roadblock, is people want to be a mentor to someone, but they don't feel like they have the tools to be able to do it. So that's really, when we talk about building out programs, all of those assets that we've created during the mentorship program itself, it's really, really important to have a true built out framework of, here's what's expected of you. One of the things that we implemented very quickly was a mentor mix, is what we call it. And so twice a month we get together, all of the mentors from the organization, And we talk about the wins, we talk about the losses, and we talk about some ideas that have been impactful. We also send out weekly emails that give you ideas and conversation starters or questions that might lead them to, are we achieving the goals that we have set forward? A lot of mentorship is actually not about getting the next promotion, but about building you up as a human being. I think most people look at me as a personal development mentor than I would say a professional development mentor. I just started working with another student over at Carson, and what a beautiful, beautiful person she is. But what I didn't realize, and this is something we're going to see very quickly, is that the COVID college kids that finished COVID and college during that time over a screen don't understand what drive is. It was fascinating to me. She is beautiful. And I'm hearing from her bosses and her colleagues of she wants to work, but she doesn't understand the drive because her last 2 years of college were professors trying to figure out how to just get them through this time. So there wasn't a lot of pressure. There wasn't a lot of, I need you to show up to class. They didn't even know how it worked. So this is a whole different group of people that are going to enter the industry, enter the workforce, and not really know what it's supposed to feel like. So it was just fascinating learning this on this one call. And, I think that's just really it, making sure you're providing the tools for mentors so they can be impactful, but also telling them to listen. Because we're going to learn more from the COVID generation of college kids, high school kids, and to Jean's point, the technology will outperform all of us right now.
Yeah. It seems also another challenge in this era of work from home, being able to mentor someone instead of face-to-face versus over a Zoom call or whatever just becomes even more perhaps difficult.
Yeah, so much is lost, and I think there's a big push in a lot of companies to get people into the office more, and not because, it's the thought that you can't be successful and work from home. We proved that out, that there was good productivity, but that engagement of that face-to-face and maybe that just one-off chat while somebody's getting a coffee to provide a little advice, a little guidance, or if you work in a setting where you're on a team and you maybe just say, hey, I don't quite understand that, and the person's sitting there, you get the answer quickly versus having to email, having to put it in a Teams chat, or even having to schedule a video call. You tend to just let it go and just maybe go without knowing. So I do think it's harder when the face-to-face is lost, and you make connections in person, and I think that's, I'm hoping I'm seeing a change for that. And it's not to say there can't be flexibility with work, but we can't just expect the next generation of our leadership to grow while they're sitting, staring at their own screen all day alone in their home or in a home office.
Yeah. And any other challenges and hurdles that you face in implementing a mentorship program?
I think a lot of times it's everyone, like anything you do, right? You start out all gung-ho and everyone's all in it. And then, maybe 3 months in, everyone's fizzling out. The mentee's not connecting with you. You're forgetting. And they're like, oh, great, then we don't have to do it anymore. But so what we have done was created time blocks where we'd say it's, could be a 10 to 12 month. We did it like a school year. Because it also can't be lifelong either, because someone who has a mentor who has volunteered their time can't think they've signed on for the rest of their life, that they're going to be. And there are times that you wind up having your mentor be part of your life and your career along the way, but not in such a formal thing. I've had that with mine and even some that I have mentored. But I think if you create a time frame and a bit of a structure, that makes people commit to it. And I love what Kellan's has done with hers is the data created accountability. So that's really, and that's in anything in life, right? With accountability, we complete it. It's the same with the mentoring program and why there is a good benefit to having it formalized with metrics.
Yeah.
Kellan, from your perspective, any other challenges and hurdles?
I think to Jean's point, going in as a mentor and once being a mentee, you have this very beautiful idea that you're going to make the biggest impact in these people's lives because you've experienced it, right? A lot of mentors get into it because they've had that amazing experience with a relationship previously. The one thing I will say to mentors going into this that want to be mentors, one, always be a mentee and always change up your mentors, because we are always going to grow and learn throughout this entire experience of life and all of the different professions that we get into. But second, you're going to get mentees that are not going to be at the same level as what you were with your mentor. So going in knowing that, like, don't expect this unbelievable outcome of a promotion and a pay increase and she's killing it and la-di-da-di-da. You know, just maybe building up their self-esteem is what they needed. And giving them the kudos to say, okay, you completed this task. You passed the Series 65. Congratulations. This is exactly what they need at that time in their life. That impact is so much greater to them than I think a lot of people realize. So just those small wins are as big as what might have been an impact in your first mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it's making me think of, I had the opportunity to mentor one of my colleagues, and it was a man. And, you know, I get his resume and I'm thinking, what does he need mentorship for? Like, he had his MBA, he was a big, college football star. He had moved through the ranks in our company. And I'm thinking, you're already successful. And what can we talk and share? And we formed a mentorship friendship type of thing where it was a lot of idea sharing. And there are times you learn as much from the mentee as they are learning from you as the mentor. But it was in certain conversations that he would repeat back, well, when I was in this meeting, I remembered like what you had said, you had done. And it was very, very fulfilling that I'm thinking, wow, like I am impacting someone that I already felt like was on his way because I did have more experience. And so I think that just plays right into Kellan's point. Like, it doesn't have to be, oh, I was the mentor and I helped them get the best job and now they are thanking me and say they owe it all to me. It's sometimes just little incremental things that you actually make an impact in someone's life.
Yeah. So I think I might have warned you that questions would pop up into my head as you're talking. So
Sure.
here's one of them, which is, how important is it that the mentor and the employee's manager are on the same page as you think about career development, et cetera?
I think it depends on the mentee. Oftentimes within our organization, I am getting reached out to by the manager of the mentee saying, Kellan, I'm seeing such change here. I'm so pleased. You know, this is what the result is in. Now, I will tell you, it would behoove me not to say every mentor should really send an introductory email to the manager of the mentee they have saying, hi, I'm mentoring your direct report. If there is anything specifically you would like me to work on with them, I would be honored to, and then keep that in the lockbox, right? No more communication going out and in, because it should be a protected environment at that time, but a check-in on how are they doing is always acceptable. I will tell you, I was reached out directly from one of our sister companies. The founder said, can you help our VP? This is what I need her to do and execute on. So that's where we started the work. But this is one of those mentees that wanted to continue the relationship, and I've been with her for over a year now. So it really, you have to walk a fine line between confidentiality and then also making sure you're making an impact within the organization.
Yeah, and I would say when you're in a corporate mentorship program, like the one that I run for the college, the goal is to help them get a job. That's not going to conflict with a corporate messaging. But the program that I just spoke, where I mentored the one guy in my company, that was a corporate organized mentorship program, and it was structured in that our role for this mentee was to help them grow professionally. And it wasn't around me saying, you should try to go in this department and get a job. It was really focused on how to help them and also help them really stay in our company too. Like, we didn't want to mentor them out of the company because that wasn't the focus. So it was really just help them grow professionally and move their career to the next level. But they were already in a program that was encouraging that. And so I think you definitely make a good point. There is a fine line when you are within a corporate mentorship program that there's a lot of involvement through management and perhaps even the HR department.
Yeah. So, Kellan, you mentioned the role that technology plays in mentorships. I think there was a day when technology did not play a role in mentorships. Do you see this as widespread now, or we're just at the beginning stages of technology being used?
I think we're at the beginning stages. To throw out some statistics, the top 50 companies of the Fortune 500 list all have mentorship programs. All of them. All women-led Fortune 500 companies all have mentorship programs. So just to put it in perspective of how important this is from the organizations that are leading our world right now, this is going to be a staple. Now, the companies that come in to help with the technology behind it, I think will get smarter. I think will get more cost effective. I think they will find ways to work with smaller companies that maybe can't put that investment in. So I think technology is driving everything. And I love how Jean was able to build this out authentically, because that work is so much harder than what I did. What you had to do to follow it by spreadsheets and make sure that assets were being delivered and communication was on time, all of that's automated now. So I think the idea might be a little bit more fearful than what technology is able to support now when people have this vision.
Yeah,
I completely agree. I think the technology enhancements that's allowing, I think the most important part is the tracking, because if organizations could really track the impact that a mentorship program is having on the employees, and generally a lot of studies, employees with a mentor are generally happier. They stay at their organization longer. And so this will be a very good return on equity that you're going to have by making mentorship part of your corporate culture.
Exactly.
So as you think about either companies that are members of the Investments and Wealth Institute or companies that are in the Fortune 500, do you see any companies that would represent best practices from your perspective?
I would say I do like what we've done in our organization at Envestnet with our delegates program. They are, standout employees at a point in their career. We'd like to bring them to the next level, and they're paired with a senior level mentor. I think that has been successful for us. I don't have as much familiarity with other organizations. I do know, it's outside of this industry, where when a new employee joins, they are assigned a mentor that is a few years ahead of them, and that is actually to help them get acclimated into the organization. And that's what was going on where my niece is employed. And I was actually very impressed by that too, because that to me was making sure somebody joins the firm and then wants to stay, and they were able to have someone to bounce ideas off of.
Kellan, any thoughts on best practices?
Yeah, I think the coaching programs are great. For the aggregators in our industry right now that are helping coach the advisory firms that are coming on board, I think that's absolutely necessary. Penny Phillips, she's got her own coaching program. Carson Coaching, they have a great program. The FinServ Foundation, similar to what Jean has done with Envestnet, I would love to do with the industry. So what you're going to start to see coming out of the FinServ Foundation is we're actually going to target specific people in the industry across all categories, not just the advisors. We want to see people that want to step up and help students coming into the industry. And we're going to actually ask them to mentor our 120 students that we currently have with the FinServ Foundation. And really just start to try to build the industry together as one instead of breaking them out. And as Jean knows, we'll sit and talk to any companies that have interest in doing mentorship programs that are trying to understand the difference between structured versus informal. We're just trying to bring awareness to how valuable this can be. And, one of the other stats that the Wharton School ran, they did a study and they said mentors are 6 times more likely to promote if they go through a mentorship program, and the mentees are 5 times more likely to promote if they go through a mentorship program compared to people that don't. So it just really goes to show that having someone help guide you through your professional and personal growth really makes a massive difference in how quickly you can elevate your career.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that some of our listeners who may want to put a mentorship program in place at their place of employment will reach out to you if they need a hand or help, if you don't mind.
Not at all. I'm always happy to share.
Great. So we've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. Anything we missed or anything that just bears reemphasizing before we wrap up?
That everyone should think about being a mentor. So I think that when we say, do we have enough mentors? We definitely have enough people to be mentors. We just need people to make it a part of what they're doing is in their career.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree. And I think even just having one conversation can change the trajectory of someone's life. So being willing to listen and sit down, maybe for someone that's a stranger, or taking a deep breath and listening to a challenge and giving a little bit of insight, that's mentorship, that's coaching, that's being available. That's what leadership is. So I really hope people realize that being a leader in the industry, it has so much more power than I think most people know.
Well, Jean, Kellan, I want to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with our listeners today. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Kellan.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Advisor podcast brought to you by the Investments and Wealth Institute. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe through iTunes, Spotify, or our website at www.investmentsandwealth.org/podcast to get the latest episodes of our Exceptional Advisor podcast series. For additional resources, updates on events, and exclusive membership deals, visit www.investmentsandwealth.org.